Hello guys, how are you doing? Okay, so my name is Arun Tyagi and we are discussing patterns from quite some time now. So today we are on singleton pattern now. We'll discuss singleton pattern. This is one of the most simple pattern I would say to implement, and one of the most hated pattern also. Not hated by audience, but hated by the guys who actually created, introduced these patterns. The gang of four. They in fact discussed whether to keep it into patterns or not, but finally they concluded that this is a useful one and we should have it. So let's just discuss about it. Let's just go over it. And this is most frequently asked pattern in interview questions. If in an interview, if an interviewer going to ask some pattern, there are very high chances. And if you are in between 2 years to 5 years of experience, people can ask this to you, because there can be some tricks and tweaks which they go further in beyond this pattern. Okay, so to start with, what singleton pattern is. Singleton pattern means an object should have not should have a type of object which should have only one state, which can have only one state throughout the life cycle of the application. There should be only one instance flowing in the memory for that particular thing, right? That is where singleton pattern helps. And for this one, we are taking an example of a database class, right, where you are creating a persistence from which you will access the data, right? So there can be one state. So think of all the objects which are like same for everyone. So for example, let's suppose you are creating a dog class, and you will always create only one dog. It is not like if one client is creating a dog, they will give their property like my dog name is this, my dog age is this, my dog color is this. It is like in my entire application there is only one dog. Yes, properties can change. You can change the name of the dog, right? You can change the color of the dog, but what will happen is everybody is actually using the same object, using the same dog, referring to the same dog. In that case, we should be able to use a singleton pattern to create that kind of to create instance of that kind of classes, right? So this is why and where we should use it. Normally in databases, in config, people use a singleton pattern to create instances of that kind of classes in real projects. Now there can be some problem while you're creating a singleton pattern. We'll discuss about those after it. Let's directly jump into how to create a singleton pattern, how to design that, because this is very simple to do. So first I'm actually giving a simpler way. If you are doing for singleton pattern for first time, then how you should approach it, right? So let's suppose I'm having a class called database, and I want that there should be only one object in memory for this class, no matter who is trying to access it, right? So for to do that, first thing is obviously I cannot have a public constructor. If I will have a public constructor, if constructor is available to everyone, they will call the constructor and they will create the instance, and then they will use it, right? Then in that case there will be multiple instances running in the memory, available in the memory, right? So that is why I made the constructor private first thing, so that you cannot create it. Now if constructor is private, how my client of this class can create or get the instance of this this class? For that, actually I gave a property to them, or you can say a function or a property, that whenever you want an instance, just call this function instance, or you can name it as get instance, right? So, and this is a static property, and obviously if you will not give static property, then how somebody will call this function? So this is static. So that means a client can simply say database, your class name dot instance, and they will get the instance. Now what we are doing here is, internally we have another property and we are calling it a a private instance. So this is like underscore instance, a private instance property we created, which is going to hold that single instance of this class. So what we are doing is, whenever somebody is calling this instance, we are simply checking whether this field is null. By default this is going to be null, right? So if this field is null, then assign this field a assign this field a value, and that value is nothing but the instance of this class, right? If not, then just simply serve this object. So when somebody will call it for first time, the instance one, this will actually populate this property, and because this is static memory, this will be there throughout the life cycle of that application in memory. So it is always available. So if next time any client, any other class will call this instance function, they will always get the same instance, right? And then they will use it. So obviously there will be multiple functions. I only gave one function called get data. This is a very simple way to create a singleton class. This will work in most of the scenarios. Now what is the problem with it? And normally people know about this thing in singleton. People used to like got asked these kind of questions, like if you are doing it in a multi-threaded environment, then there are high chances that multiple clients, multiple classes are calling this function at the same time, right? And if they will do that, then obviously this line will be executed at the same time. Not necessarily, but high chances are there. If that will happen, that means both will get like the instance property is null, right? And what will happen is both of them will create a new instance and assign to this, right? So there will be different instances, you can say, getting created, and because of which there can be different kind of errors can happen into this, because when we are coding this class, we are assuming there will be one instance. So maybe there is some code which is assuming that there is only one instance, so everybody is getting the same data. But in multi-threaded, if we'll create multiple instances, so something can go wrong there, right? So to do that, there is ways in every language. Java, C#, they have different ways to do locking, or monitoring of some chunk of code which you can lock, in which only one thread will enter at a time, right? So we will do the same thing. I actually created another class. I'm calling it a thread safe singleton. Let's just go inside it. So this one is nothing but copy of the previous class. It is having only one thing extra, that this piece of code, this chunk, I actually just added a lock on it. So only one thread will be able to enter inside it, right? And we are done. So in a multi-threaded environment, this is now a safe code to create single object of this type of class, right? Though there can be double checks, obviously there can be extra safety, but this is good enough for us to start, right? Beyond it, people also, so this is obviously a eager loading, because this is static memory, and if somebody will call it, somebody even if just use this, then basically you can create the instance. So there can be lazy instantiation also, if you will do lazy loading on this property, that when somebody is calling it intentionally, then only create the object of it. But that we can ignore for now. Lazy loading is a known thing, and it's easy to implement once you know what is singleton pattern and you know lazy loading. You will be able to do that very easily. It's like just 1 or 2 lines of changes. Okay, so more or less this is what singleton pattern is, right? We are done. Now there are some problem into it. One problem is if a client will use it, how client is going to use it? They will have the singleton. They will say like database db equals to database dot get instance, because this is static, so they will use class name to get the instance of it. That means they are dependent on a concrete type, right? And we already discussed solid patterns, solid principles. We discussed other patterns also. Loosely coupled abstraction is highly recommended, highly, people forced to do that. Otherwise you are actually introducing more errors and bugs. So if you see, with something like this, testing is very difficult. And why is that? Let me open my client also. So here I created a class called dependency usage of singleton, dependency injection. I'm trying to say here. Okay, so let's suppose this is a client, any class which is going to use that database class. Now yeah, this is what I was talking about, that how you will create. You will simply do database db, give me the instance, and then I will use it somewhere. So I wrote a function like some work. They will do like db dot whatever functions I'm having and their functionality. Problem is, if you are testing, if you are writing a test case for this function, you are actually dependent on this concrete class. There's no way you can pass a mock this mock object of this database here, because you are not using any abstraction. You are using a concrete type here, right? So here also it is recommended to use abstraction. And how we can do that? It's actually very simple. In place of my database, I will create another abstraction. I will call it an iDatabase interface, which will define all the functionalities, only declare the functionalities of that class. And to my client, I'm going to pass the instance. Whether it's a singleton or not, then client need not to know. I only want that there should be one instance, but it is not necessary that client should use it like that, right? They will use it like a simple any other class. So now here, when you are writing test cases, you can actually pass your mock database, right? Your container into it, and then everything will work perfectly, right? So this dependency injection will save us, right? So that's it. Singleton is straightforward, easy. Please download the code, try to tweak it, just see if you are having any config classes. Normally we keep our different configs, connections in a class, so that can we make it a singleton? Because we should make it a singleton, by the way, because in runtime, in your logical partition, if multiple partitions are going to use some config, so if you're not using singleton, there are chances like maybe your one logical partition is using the instance, but other one is not even they haven't initiated it but trying to use it. So let's suppose you are having a web role and a worker role and running in one memory. I'm not talking about a microservice environment. In that case, let's suppose your web role is having that startup function, a main function. That guy is actually populating all the things into your config class, right? That my connection string is this, my file connection store container, AWS or Azure, whatever is this, and some other configs. Now other are actually consuming it. Obviously you don't want to write that initiator into every worker role and web role. One guy will do that, right? When you are doing it, if that is not singleton, that what will happen is they will again try to create it, and there are chances if one guy is not doing it, then you can have errors, right? They can create with some other property, so you are writing somewhere and they are reading from somewhere else, right? So in that case you can use singleton for sure. So try to use a singleton there, and then slowly you will find more places where you can use this pattern. That's it guys, that's it for today. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. Enjoy. Bye bye.